Lesson 12 for March 14 to 20, From North and South to the Beautiful Land. Read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Wednesday, March 18, The Next Power. Question, read Daniel 11, verses 29 to 39. What is this power that arises after pagan Rome? Daniel 11, beginning at verse 29. At the appointed time he shall return and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Cyprus shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved, and return in rage against the holy covenant, and do damage. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. And forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices, and place there the abomination of desolation. Those who do wickedly against the covenant he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong, and carry out great exploits. And those of the people who understand shall instruct many. Yet for many days they shall fall by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Now when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help, but many shall join with them by intrigue, and some of those of understanding shall fall to refine them, purify them, and make them white, until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. Then the king shall do according to his own will. He shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished. For what has been determined shall be done. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any god, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honour a god of fortresses, and a god which his fathers did not know he shall honour with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus he shall act against the strongest fortress with a foreign god, which he shall acknowledge and advance its glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and divide the land for gain. Daniel 11, verses 29 to 39, refers to a new power system. Although this system stands in continuation with the pagan Roman Empire and inherits some characteristics of its predecessor, at the same time it seems to be different in some aspects. The biblical text says that it shall not be like the former or the latter in verse 29. As we look forward, we find that it acts as a religious power. It aims its attack mainly at God and his people. Let us look at some of the actions perpetrated by this king. First, he will act in rage against the holy covenant in verse 30. This must be a reference to God's covenant of salvation, which this king opposes. Second, this king will produce forces that will defile the sanctuary and take away the daily sacrifices in verse 31. We noted in Daniel 8 that the little horn casts down the foundation of God's sanctuary and takes away the daily sacrifices. That's Daniel 8, verse 11. This must be understood as a spiritual attack against Christ's ministration in the heavenly sanctuary. Third, as a consequence of his attack on the sanctuary, this power places the abomination of desolation in God's temple. The parallel expression, transgression of desolation, points to the acts of apostasy and rebellion by the little horn in Daniel 8:13. Fourth, this power persecutes God's people. Some of those of understanding shall fall, to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, verse 35 in chapter 11. This reminds us of the little horn which cast down some of the host and some of the stars and trampled them, as we read in Daniel 8:10, and it grew up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground, and trampled them, and in Daniel 7:25, he shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand, for a time, and times, and half a time. Fifth, The king will exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods. Verse 36 of Daniel 11. Unsurprisingly, the little horn also speaks pompous words, as we read in Daniel 7:8. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the little horns were plucked up by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. And even against God in Daniel 7:25. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. So to finish the day, other similarities could be mentioned, but considering what we read in Daniel 7 and Daniel 8, who is this power? And why is it so important to us, despite social pressures, to stay firm in our identification of it? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind and Hearing Impaired, Christian Record Services for the Blind, the Sabbath School Department, and Hope Channel. You can also listen on the official Sabbath School 4 app and the Apple iTunes app, Sabbath School with Percy Harrold. Remember, God is always faithful.